the sermon, I want to make another announcement. You probably have still noticed that we do have some pictures up here, but I know it's not of everybody. So please, if you can bring a picture. Now, Joanne brought one that we can keep here. So I'm going to put it up here. Joanne, you are here. It looks like we are celebrating your homegoing, but we're not. We are, but we are celebrating our congregation. So she said I can keep it here in a frame. So I would like pictures, if you all can give me one, whether it's in a frame or where I have some tape and put it up here. I'd like a picture of everyone. And I'll just go ahead and tape it on up or put it on the table. I hope Joanne's is not the only one, otherwise it does look like a homegoing. But it's a homecoming, how's that? So please, bring your pictures, that'd be great. Our Old Testament reading today comes from Genesis 45, 1 through 15. And I invite you to listen as I read. Again, I am preaching from the Old Testament. And if you were in church the last 3 Sundays, you will remember the story, and this is a continuation. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all those who stood by him. And he cried out, "Send everyone away from me." So no one stayed with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dismayed were they at his presence. And then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come closer to me." And they came closer. He said, "I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now, do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. So it is not you who sent me here, but God. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, the Lord of all his house, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall settle in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children and your children's children, as well as your flocks, your herds, and all that you have. I will provide for you there, since there are 5 more years of famine to come, so that you and your household and all that you have will not come to poverty." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The sermon title of this is called Authenticity and Humility. Being authentic, being sincere, being humble, one that doesn't puff up, one that realizes that their being is so small in light of the world. Has anybody here had a good cry? Anybody? You know, and after that hard, heartfelt cry, you felt better. Okay. You might have felt relieved or revived, or possibly exhausted from holding in all those emotions. The journey to that good cry might have been difficult. It is much easier to sweep those emotions under the rug so you don't have to feel the pain, the loss, the grief, the heartache. You see, Joseph had to work through the pain of realizing that his brothers hated him so much that they sold him into slavery. Just sit with that for a moment. If somebody in your family, your brother or sister, sold you into slavery, the people who were supposed to love you sold you. The people that were supposed to hold you dear decided that you weren't worth anything. Now, Joseph was intent, and his intent was not to necessarily stir his brother's consciousness, but now that a strong sorrow gripped them, Joseph would turn them from remorseful, backward-looking, to thankful appreciation, and I'll just say appropriation, for the future that God's mercy has provided. Goshen was an Egyptian territory, and it was suitable for cattle, and it was suitable for growing things, and it afforded the Israelites seclusion and safety where it was situated in Egypt. Goshen was a place where the Israelites could sojourn there for a long time and make it possible for the preservation of Israel's specific covenant and culture, favorable for the unity and growth of the Israelites. Thanks be to God, the one providing a sovereign grant from divine favor. And finally, Jacob, with all his families of Canaan, come to Egypt. And the family reunion affects reconciliation of a family that once was at war within itself. Now, reconciliation that only occurs in this story by divine intervention. And ultimately, God intends his people to be together and to survive. Does God want us to work things out in our lives? What began this break in the relationship? Did Jacob prefer one of his sons over another? Did the brothers get jealous? Yep. And did they have cause to be jealous? Hold that a minute, because you see, when you think about jealousy, you think about righteousness. What I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen of God, is that when you get mad, you feel like you have a right to be mad at somebody, and so you hold tight to that. Now, when I read this Old Testament story, I started to think about what is happening in 2020. And what are the pressure points for me as a pastor, as a woman, as a grandmother, as a wife, as a person in society? And what are the pressure points today for us? Do we have a tendency to get upset if we're not the center of attention? Do we get jealous easily or quick to be upset? Anybody in here got a temper? How do we treat our friends? This story really is a mirror of all of our lives. And I know somebody out there is going to say, well, I never sold my brother in slavery. You might not have, but you might have told your little brother that maybe he was adopted.
My mother told me that all the time.
And I kind of did that too, Joanne. After all, my brother wasn't the same color as my mother. So it was right easy to do that.
I had two sisters, I would have sold them.
See?
Nobody would.
Now, unless we ask the questions of ourselves, how can we have expectations of others? Now, you see, jealousy, I hope I'm on here, am I? Okay. Jealousy is a human emotion, quite ugly. What do we do about those things? When I asked Joanne what she was thinking about, she says she has trouble loving everybody. I think we all have trouble loving everybody. I remember, and I told Luke this, we went to grade school together, and Sheryl Crumble, she, God bless her, I accidentally stepped on her foot, and she turned around and she stamped on mine. And I said, well, I'm sorry, what happened? And she said, well, you stepped on the back of my shoe. So I was just getting back at you. And I thought, oh, I'm not going to mess with this girl again. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Well, you see, as human beings, we're a lot like Joseph's brothers. Somebody has something or did something, or mama thinks you're better than me, and I'm jealous. And if I saw my mama being a little bit more nice to my brother because he was special, and I'm not as special, then I'm going to tell him he was adopted, so he didn't feel so special. I'm going to bring him down a few notches. Now that was mean. And that wasn't a nice big sister. And I had to own up to that, and still do, because I have this thing in my heart going, guilt, guilt, guilt. And even today, I said, you know, when we talk about some of the things that we did to each other, you know, the sister that you didn't like, or the brother that you did, you know, they keep getting on each other. I remember talking to Bruce the other day and saying, you know, we were awful some days. But as we grew, we became more friends. And I think that that's what life is about. When God was with the Israelites, they were not perfect people. It was an evolution of a people. Today they're not a perfect people. But God is still in it and working through. And I understand this past week there's been some conversation with the Palestinians and so forth. It doesn't mean it's going to change tomorrow, but there is communication. Now, feeling humble, ooh, that's not sometimes a nice feeling, but sometimes it is. When you sit on the edge of the Grand Canyon and you dangle your feet, you know you are nothing but a speck in this world. When you see a baby and you hold it, those of you that are parents, you hold that baby and you feel like, oh my goodness, I've got to take care of this little thing, especially that first one. Remember the first one? Everything is like, oh my goodness. What shall we do with it? Well, it kind of looks like you, maybe not at first, because they all look alike at first. But it kind of looks like you, and I think God made it that way so we keep them, and we love them. You know? Look in the mirror. Don't you just kind of love you? And, you know, and even people that have been married a while, they kind of look like each other. Look at these 3 sets. Y'all been together a long time. Look at you. You remind me of each other, please. They look like brother and sister now. You see what happens when you journey with somebody? Look at this. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Say something, Pete. Look at these 2 over here. We celebrated. Look at those 2 over there. Oh my goodness. And those of you that are sitting by yourselves, don't think that you didn't look like somebody. Because if Gus was sitting here, y'all would look like 2 little Greek people, even though you're Irish. Because Gus was a strong Greek man. Amen? You see? And even though you're short and Frank is big and tall, y'all remind each other of each other. So as we journey together, we learn more. We start even learning the language of one another, right? And we sort of pick up that other person's persona. That is humbling. And also, yes, you don't see Mary without Ed, and Ed without Mary. If that ever happens, I'm worried that somebody's sick. The other one. Humility and authenticity as it pertains to God means that there will be times when we are humbled to our knees. And it will not be comfortable. But as God would have it with the Israelites, God has it in 2020. That we are to look at each other as people of God and to forgive one another as we think about those things that make us angry. And no, we are not going to always have our own rooms clean before we point to somebody else's room that's dirty. I hope you get that analogy. Because we are quick in our humanness to point to somebody's bedroom that is dirty, and then we look at our own, oops. So on this day, when you go home today, look in the mirror and work on who this person is in God. And then you can look at if you have a significant other, look at that person without being critical and say, wow, I've been so blessed because God has sent another person in my life to love me and to be appreciative and to be humble, because that didn't always have to happen. And how do I know? Maybe I don't. Maybe I do. But many times I am at the sideline, at the bedside. And recently I haven't been able to hold a hand. But I used to. And when you make the phone call to the family, and you say, so-and-so is not doing well, we probably have a few hours. We have hours to days. So that gives somebody from out of town time to get in. And guess what happens? Sometimes they don't show up. And so the only person to hold their hand is the staff. And so you're there. And you wonder, what happened here? So ladies and gentlemen of God, as we look at ourselves, as we look at how we treat one another, we don't have to literally sell anybody into slavery. But sometimes we sell their character. Sometimes there's gossip. Sometimes there's nastiness that we do that supposedly makes us feel good for a period of time. That's the stuff that God is saying, let go of. And God is still in the midst of disobedience. Even though the Israelites did not have their own bedroom clean. God was still there. And even though your marriage may not be a perfect one, or your relationship may not be perfect, God is still in it. And yes, even when we get mad, somebody said they get mad easy. Just count to 20 and see how that works before you fuss at somebody. Huh? And even though you all are starting to look like each other, you're not each other. You're unique. You're impressive. You're awesome in your own regard. And so each one of us respecting that, how unique we are, even though we don't look alike. And even when somebody is in heaven and you're down here alone, you see the strength comes out. This lady was married a long time. I've never seen her stronger than when Gus is in heaven. You are amazing. Anybody else who's a widow in here, widower or widow? Lee, you said there's nothing that can keep you from coming to church. Not a darn thing, and that's not how you said it. Joanne, you said that was the best thing you did. It took you a while, but you did it. And you're sitting here as a strong woman. Anybody else? I don't even have to say anything about you. You're about as strong as they come. I try to help you to your car, and you said, I can do it. Awesome. We can do it with each other, ladies and gentlemen. We can do it with each other. Just being humble and being real and being saved and being prayerful and being loving and being you. We can do this thing. Even when our rooms are not clean. God is still there. Amen?